taught it as an English teacher dozens of times, actually. And what we were thinking is that the kids would use the story of the Buddha or the story of Siddhartha and use that to get to find new ways of talking about the idea of enlightenment or just being happy with your lives. And it's 12th grade senior year, and many of you know what happens to kids, especially these days. 12th grade senior year, it's the first semester, it's a great freak out. Remember how many kids like, I can't do my work, I have to apply for college. And I'm like, yeah, but it's only like one essay, it's going to take like 3 hours. What about the rest of the semester? And yet they were freaking out, and he was there.
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah. And I'm not lying. And so this, I think, will enable them, this project, this like very introspective project, this idea of binding something that's going to make them happy will really enable them to write the essays better and give them a reason for going to college and thinking about it, or at least start to think about the reason why they're going to college instead of because they have to. It's so we really did it on those terms. So I love Siddhartha, and I love like taking the story of if you don't know, it's that Hermann Hesse wrote a book about a young man who was a Brahmin and he became a Buddha. But it wasn't the story of the Buddha, Gautama Buddha. He even runs into Gautama Buddha in the story, but he finds his own path. And so the whole concept of the story is basically, one of my favorite lines is like, you can't learn from teachings. Nobody can learn from a teacher, they have to learn on their own. I love reading that with my kids. I'm like, and I read it out loud in class, I say, yeah, see? And they're like, well, we want to learn from you. And I'm like, oh, thanks. Buddha. So this project, I call this kind of collaboration, it's kind of ping-pong collaboration. They do something in my class, then they do something in Kelly's class, and they kind of bounce back and forth, and then they make something. So I'll run through what I have. I have a website for it. Hey, could you come and try and get this going for me?
I'll try.
I made the website for it. It's a shame not to. See if you can get connected. So the first thing they do is, in my class, they choose a place and a time. I chose 1970s London. And they have to go through, they have to answer questions, they have to find patterns, they have to choose a color palette that's applicable to 1970s in London. We did this project where last semester where we made graphic illustrations of Kurt Vonnegut's short stories. And so the kids were doing, they illustrated stories that took place in the 1950s. And they were pulling stuff out that was like really contemporary. I'm like, no. You gotta look at the way somebody's dressed in the 50s. You can't choose the way somebody's dressed now. That's not how they dressed. Or they were doing stories about, this great story about a displaced persons camp after World War II. And the kid had the kids all dressed up in hip-hop clothing. And I'm like, no, man, it didn't look that way. You gotta research it. And so what I learned from my last assignment was that I need a design maquette. So this is where they can take the design from, have it ready when they go to make the storyboard. So they also have to do the way people are dressed, poor and rich people. They have to have the ministers, and so I put a Druid priest and a priest in their places, hairstyles, food. And so to kind of get a research about it, and at the same time they're doing this in my class for 2 weeks, putting this together, even picking a font that's for the time. It's kind of punk rock, but then with also a beautiful, English font. They'll read Siddhartha in my partner's class, and my son just went through, my older son, not the one out there, just had to read a book about this little girl and her hope chest and all the beautiful brocade fabrics that she kept in it. And he was like, this is horrible. And I'm like, he's like, but I have to read it. I'm like, let me read it. And so it was like 100 pages, so I took like a couple hours and I read this book, and it was horrible. I'm like, oh shit, Paul, well, you just gotta read it, man. I'm like, you're right though, it's terrible. And I asked the teacher, and she didn't get that, oh wow, giving choice. So Hermann Hesse is pretty easy, but I've heard kids read it and say, oh, it's so simple, it's so lame, it's so surface. It's not, but things that are deeper. But I'm also we also have other books where people go through an enlightenment process, like Razor's Edge, or a bunch of different books that she was just going off, my teaching partner, and I'm like, oh, okay, all right. So we're going to give them options. Hopefully they look at Siddhartha, and then they're going to take that and they're going to write an outline, which I wrote to my story, and I had the characters and the different processes that they go through, and it's up on my website, jeffrobin.com, if you want to go there.
What does it say again?
jeffrobin.com. It goes to our High Tech High website. But instead of having to click so many places. And so I wrote an outline of what the story was going to be, and this is the outline. And then they'll write that in Kelly's class. They'll write the outline of the story that they want to write and all the things that take place. And then in my class, they're going to illustrate it, and we'll use Photoshop and I have this technique of doing drawings when you can't draw. You kind of find something online, and then you trace it, and you scan it back in, and you recolor it in Photoshop, and it's pretty cool, and you get the right values in there. And it really teaches people how to finally you have a use for the word anti-disestablishmentarianism. You break it apart, and then you build it back, and you make it your own image. So the kids are this is just half the story, though. This took me I think if I really was honest about it, it took me 40 hours to do this, and it's only half. And so I figured it takes me 2 hours, it'll take the kid a month to do it.
Yeah.
So 40 hours, what does that tell me? They might never finish it. So that's where one of my first questions is. And so I haven't done the second part, and so what we were thinking was after they get their storyboard done, then they take the storyboard and they write their new novel about it. They write about 20 pages or 15 to 20 pages of their new story. But having the storyboard there to look at, to see how they made the face, now they're going to be able to describe what things look like in a more descriptive way because they have a storyboard. Instead of just imagining it, they're going to use their own drawings or their partner's drawings and to write a story. And then after they write the story, they have to tell that story to a group, an audience. And instead of it being, usually it's the end result is we put the paintings up and then we have a book about it and things like that. This way it's the story. Did you get it? Mm-hmm. Oh, what about that?
Oh no, you have to use the stick. You have to
oh, where's the stick?
Here,
I got a human stick. Come here.
You could. Those who don't know, I already graduated High Tech High, so.
Good for you, you graduated high school. Is it on?
Yeah. Critical thinking at High Tech High is what we learned here.
But yeah, I mean, it's just that, especially here, people think, oh, it's all about technology. But to keep it all going, I mean, we buy new technology, but then of course, it totally falls apart. I mean, the love of engineers is waning in my heart.
There it is.
Here it is. So it's coming in. So maybe let's make it smaller. And I really love. I really love putting everything up online. You don't have to do it, but I do absolutely everything. And that way the kids get to see it, they get to see where it's at, they get to see, I don't have to print handouts anymore. Parents get to see it. They say, oh, I don't know what my son's doing. I said, well, you didn't go to jeffrobin.com? They didn't tell you about it? And they're like, oh, well, they might have. I said, well, yeah, okay, so that's where it's at. I don't want to print anymore, because you always find the handouts on the ground.
Do you tell if your families have internet access?
Oh, yeah.
They do.
And if a kid doesn't have a computer at home, we usually people will donate computers to the school that maybe we wouldn't use at school, and so we'll fix them up and give them to the kids. And it's that kind of thing is, yeah, we've really found that as far as the digital divide is concerned, that isn't the real thing. It's wanting to just turn it on is the hard part. I taught special ed years ago, and I would give the kids a calculator to do their problems, and I'd get the test back, and they were all the answers wrong. I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, why didn't you use your calculator? And I didn't feel like it. because I gave it to them and for them to use it. So in the same way, our digital divide is usually just about like not wanting to do any work at home or feeling comfortable. Maybe it's not their fault either. So I have, this is our website for it, and if you ever, so it's on jeffrobin.com, and then I have videos about project-based learning too. If some of them are funny, some of them are a little sad, and then I have the project like we did last semester with the graphic novel project and Masters to Masters. So you can see how I planned out projects before, and then the corresponding books that go with it. So it's kind of over the top, actually. Here's where I'm giving it to the students and all the things they need to do in my class, and then they'll read Siddhartha, and then here's their storyboard. I have my story outline that I wrote. It's not that, it's like 2.5 pages, but it's what goes into here. So I'll show them both things and explain it, and hopefully I'll finish the actual storyboard. That would be, I think it's like incredibly hypocritical to tell a kid to do something if you haven't done it yourself. And you were in the first semester when I was right? And I wrote the paper, and did it help seeing the paper? Yes. So they had to write a paper that compared the motive and motif of an author's 3 books that weren't, series. And I thought, oh, what a great assignment. And so I actually read 3 books, and then went to go and write the paper, and then realized I didn't take good enough notes, and I had to read the 3 books again so I could connect them together. And I really learned like the hard way about writing a paper, and it was a lot of work. And I hadn't written an expository writing like in about 25 years. And it really taught me a lesson. And so by doing the project myself first, everybody did it anyway, but they felt better about it, or?
When you
did it myself.
Yeah, because it was structured, because we knew what it was that it should look like. So that really did help.
Yeah. And so the notion that, oh my God, if I do the project myself first, the kids will just copy me. Great, I'm a pretty good artist. My paintings sell for a lot of money. If the kids can copy me, great. But that's how they taught up until about 100 years ago, a master and apprentice. The apprentice did work like the master, did work like another master, and then they did work like themselves. Only in this like modernist, post-industrial society do we feel like, oh my God, you have to be totally original all the time. When Picasso wasn't original. Hemingway wrote about what he saw. That's not original. And so the idea that the kids will see your work and then do work like it is actually, that's perfect. But here we're doing something different, so now we'll get into it. And so then I have their story outline, the storyboards, the chapters that I chose, and then down here in Kelly's class, they'll write the story of the Buddha, and then they have to tell it. They have to exhibit it some way. They could stand up and talk it. They could do an animation. They could do lots of different things. And I'll probably show them one of my animations. Is this sound? How do you plug it in? Here, I'll show you my latest video. And this is the kind of idea that I was... it's not long. I don't think. Students work on the same project in different classes. In this metaphor, the student is not the ball, rather the project is. The teachers support the students in different subjects that are integral to the project. Students need to complete one project for both classes. Here are 2 examples of Pingpong Collaboration. During the Phys Newton project, the students illustrated the Newtonian state physics standards. One of our students chose universal gravitation and how every object has a gravitational force. This concept directly relates to the inverse square law as well. My partner, the physics teacher, helped the students understand these laws. The student then came to me with her example, asteroids. They look like hostess snowball cakes. I didn't think that she was getting her point across. I asked her to humanize these laws, use people to explain the concepts. She went back to physics and then returned with this idea. that she realized in my class. Objects with lesser mass and that are further apart tend to have less attraction. Objects with greater mass and are closer together tend to stay together. I even thought the fact I looked like me, except for no mustache. This is Cherish Burson's illustration. Another example of Pingpong Collaboration is the graphic novel project. In my partner's English class, the students read and researched the stories that they were interpreting into graphic novels. Then in my class, they found images for inspiration and created their own comics. Half of the time they were in English, and the other half of the time they were doing art. My partner was the editor, and I was the art director. The students came to both of us for advice in writing and in art. This was a true collaborative effort. The reason Pingpong Collaboration is good is that projects in the real world are structured this way. A good example is making a movie. You need writers, directors, producers, and so many more people to make a movie. Many times you need more than one expert in many fields to complete this kind of project. Like making a car, you need engineers, mechanics, welders, and lots of other people that I can't even imagine to bring a car to market. Also, in real life, people have many bosses telling them what to do, at work and at home. Pingpong Collaboration prepares students for their future long after their content is forgotten. So they can make a video like this, and then I'll show them, and I'll say, oh, by the way, you're doing Pingpong Collaboration. And I used to think that tipping my hand to the kids about how they're going to be taught was so like 90, 95, you know, like when you were teaching in 90, or some of you when you were in school in 95, they made you write the standard that you're covering on the paper. And I thought, wait a minute, why are we pushing the standards and all this education crap on the kids when they should just have fun learning? Why are we putting our own, you know, our own freak on it? But now I guess this is maybe in a more positive way, and talking about doing projects and the reason that they're doing projects. So actually, I mean, I did make them myself, so it's not like as onerous as putting 419 on it and explaining the thing. But so hopefully that this is one kind of way that they might have an output, or that maybe they'll do a comic book, or maybe they'll do a performance piece, or maybe they'll put on a play about their new path. And so I'm really letting it open to them. So my question is how much can I let it open to them? Should I do it in teams, in singulars, although it's too much work, in partners of 2? I never do more than 2. Even if you all told me you should do partners of 3, I'm still not going to do it because I've been down that road so many times and it's pure hell. Even if I was paid. Well, actually, somebody said we're going to give you $10,000 to do partners of 3. I would definitely do it. It probably still wouldn't be worth it. So partners, and then also how to limit the output of all the things that they could do, or not limit it, but not feel like it's limited, but still let them feel like they have voice in the way they want to express their story, but not torture me. You can just tell. All right. Sorry.
All right.
All right.
Okay, so I'm going to write those questions up so we can refer back to that as we go on with our conversation. So for the next 5 minutes, we're going to take questions. We're going to break it down to clarifying questions for the first 5 minutes, where you're just kind of clarifying your own thinking. So you can ask any questions you need of Jeff so that you have a better understanding of his project and kind of the information he's looking for, because you're actually going to help inform his practice. And then we'll take another 5 minutes to ask more probing questions to help him think a little deeper about his own project. So if in the first 5 minutes you ask a question that he has to stop and go, then we'll move on, and that's more of a probing question that it made him think. So the first one's to make you think, clarify your thinking. The second part's to clarify his thinking. So you want to know, if I'm right here.
No, that's great. Nobody explained it to me like that ever before.
Well, there you go. How much can you leave it open to the students? Like
how to, like in their last exit, when they have to exhibit their story, how much can I leave it open? Should I let them, you know, they'll obviously have to come up with a plan on how they want to exhibit it, but do I let them put on a huge performance? Do I let them just get away with doing a soliloquy? should I set priorities or should I just let it go? I mean, I have a good sense that normally I don't let things go, but then I don't really, I love the result my kids get, but compared to if you walk around here and then you go to my school, the art looks great up on the walls, actually a lot of it's down, but it's a little too perfect, it's a little too much of my telling them, oh yeah, it's got to be perfectly glazed, it's got to do it right and symmetrical, and here there's my really good friend teaches art here, and I love the craziness of everything, and it seems a little more organic, so I'm kind of trying to move a little towards that.
So you're talking output,
Yeah, how are they going to tell their story?
voice, and expression, sort of, along those lines? Okay. And I think your clarifying questions might help clarify that as well. Okay. While we're doing this, just to be clear with the norms, just always giving your, want to make sure you share the air. So if you are the type that doesn't speak up very often, please feel free to do so. And if you're the type that talks too much, feel free to limit that. And then we'll always want to be very kind and specific to, you know, his project and as helpful as possible.
How did you choose